Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa,
Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Welcome to another episode of the Sikh Ethics program on the 829 Sikh channel and through the World Wide Web. You can catch us in. We're still discussing the issue of interfaith marriages, and because there's so many questions to go through, and we've had such a massive response on the emails and the Facebook messages and stuff like that. So rather than wasting any time, I'm going to go straight to the panel, because one question ਕਈ ਵਾਰ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਲੋ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦਾ because they don't really know these words, but ਇਹ ਸਾਡੀਆਂ ਭੈਣਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ of a certain age, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ 45 and plus, ਉਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੀਆਂ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬਾਣੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਆ ਧੁਰੋਂ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਸੰਜੋਗ, ਕਿ ਜੇ ਧੁਰੋਂ ਲਿਖੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਸੰਜੋਗ ਰੱਬ ਦੇ ਬਣਾਈਆਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਜੋੜੀਆਂ, ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਰੋਕ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ? ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਉਂ ਸਟਾਪ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰੱਬ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਟੱਕਰਾ ਲੈ ਰਹੇ ਆ? So you're going against God's will. Very deep question. Who wants to come in on this? Who wants to come in on this?
It's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer because they say Turukya Sanjog, if the two couple really want to get together and they genuinely believe there's Turukya Sanjog, which Sanjog Likhi hai gaya sare karam ansar, then, depending on their faith, if they're both of the same faith, then they haven't got a problem of getting married. If they do want to go ahead and they've got different faiths, they can always take the court marriage registry marriage option. Right? I mean, it's not something that should affect the Sikhi and Anand Karaj, right? Because the bottom line is that you have to keep to Sikhi faith to take the Anand Karaj. You can't take a spiritual life and have one person practicing one faith and the other person practicing another. It cannot happen. Right? Maharaj by Gurdas Nivana says, Lok Ved Gun Gyan Vich Ardha Sariri Mokh Dwari. Half of the body is man, half of the body is woman. When you take this, then it says Gurmukha. Sadly, Suchetri dasya hai ya. Gurmukha Sukha Phal Nehicho Nari. Through that spiritual joining, you can reach that deliverance, the spiritual goal. Now, if you don't talk on the same spiritual language,
if you're not on the same vibes,
on the vibe, you're history, man. That's my take. Not my take. I'm taking Saj from my Guru Sahib and the Guru Sikhs.
Because a lot of people say, like, are we contradicting? Apna Guru te Guru Maharaj ja, te jadon ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਕਿ ਧੁਰੋਂ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਸੰਜੋਗ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਅਗੇਂਸਟ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ, ਪਰਮਾਤਮਾ ਦੇ ਅਗੇਂਸਟ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ, ਕਿ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਸੰਜੋਗ ਲਿਖੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ, ਧੁਰੋਂ ਲਿਖੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ, these sanjogs have been made in the, marriages are made in heaven, and the marriages are made in heaven, and you go through the ceremony on earth, sort of thing. So what would you say to that? Would you have the similar answer?
Yeah, but I think Faisal mentioned here about garams, right? And this is a big concept which people don't understand that often. And we're not going to, I don't think we're going to do it justice by talking about it. But basically it's about we believe in reincarnation and the life cycle and how we come across various people. It's through our garams that today we're sitting here, maybe, because we've, from previous lifetimes, but we don't know that, right? And because of that, yes, there is this concept that these souls may meet, but they may be in two different faiths.
Right.
Right? So, but coming together, it just so happens that they've been born in those two different faiths because of what they committed, what sins or what goodness they committed will determine what you're born as, in which, whether you're an animal or whether you're human, and in the human species, whether you're born in a Hindu, Sikh, Muslim, whatever, a Christian family, it'll be determined. But if you just happen to be unlucky because to fall into an opposite one, but you've actually, husband and wife, or man and woman have come together and they've fallen in love, right? Then, on a lawful basis, if you want to get married, then there is a facility there to do that through the court marriage. Okay. Now, if you were fortunate enough that you both born on one side or the other, you can then follow the preaching, the practice of that faith. Yeah. But if you've fallen the boundary, then you've got to decide, and then that's where the law then caters for you. Okay, and but if you
the law
the law,
caters for you.
yeah. So, what you can also, because then that becomes a what they call it, you've got secular and non-secular, yeah. So you've got the one that's faith-based and then the one that's non-faith-based, yeah. And then it's the non-faith-based you can go down and come together as and wear the ring or whatever it might be, that practice that's allowing you to come together.
Contract.
Right? The contract.
It's a contract.
And that's exactly what it is. Whereas, right, if you come together within the faith, whatever you're in, it's no longer a contract. Yeah, it's a commitment to each other, and it's a binding through your faith practice, through your
so whether
through
it's
your
through the kalmas, whether it's through the Bhagavad Gita or the Bediyan other part, whether it's through Guru Maharaj, you're actually committing yourselves.
You're committing yourselves to that, and through that, that's your spiritual connection then, because it becomes common to both of you. But if you then haven't got a commonality, so one's on the Veds and one's on the Quran and one's on the Guru Granth Sahib and one's on the Bible, and then it causes a few problems because they're contradictory. Okay, and the Bani, for example, because in Gurbani, coming back to the lava, right, Maharaj puts it to us, it says that Bani Brahma Ved Taram Dredo, right, and so it says make your Veds of the Brahma, right, make Bani your equivalent of Veds and of Brahma, what he wrote, right, and so therefore Maharaj is saying, forget all the other practices, forget all the other scriptures that have been written beforehand, commit to Gurbani, because Gurbani is Pradhan, is in Kaljug, in this era we're going in, Gurbani is there, and that's the light.
And just to stop you there, because it's a very important point there that ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ line quote ਕੀਤੀ ਆ, ਜਦੋਂ Maharaj ਇੱਕ example ਦਿੱਤਾ, so Maharaj is really saying the Quran, Maharaj is in the Bible, Maharaj is in the Ved, ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੁਣ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਭੁੱਲ ਜਾਓ, ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਆ supersedes everything, ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਗਿਆਨ ਆ supersedes. Now, even before you get to that lam, the word lama actually means, it's a Sanskrit word, ਜਿਹਦਾ root ਆਪਾਂ ਦੇਖੀਏ ਇਸ word ਦਾ, ਇਹਦਾ meaning ਇਹ ਹੈਗਾ to break away.
To break away.
So, ਬੱਚੀ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਧਰਮ ਤੋਂ ਆ, ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਨਹੀਂ, ਬੱਚਾ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਧਰਮ ਦਾ, ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਨਹੀਂ, whether he's Sikh, you actually break away from your past and you're sitting in the present moment taking on the gyan, and that is what becomes your present. So it alleviates going anywhere else, because that was your past. You had a Hindu past, you had a Islamic past, you had a Catholic past or a Christian path or a Jaini path. Once you're sitting there in the Nanda Karaj, that sort of says, now you're about to take the lam, and the word lam means to break away. So you break away from all your past, and your new life with your other half begins now on the gyan that's going to be given to you, and you then got to lead a guru-centric life, and the Guru Granth Sahib being the center. So the very word lam is actually telling you to break away from everything that you have. So it's like having a new hard drive, and you're going to be...
And if you look at the Shabad before, Jiresh Shabad, the part of the either side of the Lama, right? The first Shabad when once they've done, initially is the Gita Lodiyakam, right? And then after that, usually follows Ke Palle Tende Lagi, right? And in that Shabad, it tells you Ke Habbe Sakuravi Ditte, right? Yeah, all my previous Ristadar, I see them as they're false, and I'm breaking away from them to join you. And that's not just a message for the Bachchi who's joining through the Palla to the guy, but it's them both making the commitment to Guru.
Actually, Guru de naal. We can only symbolize it by joining the husband and wife physically, but there's a spiritual Palla. That the Shabad Palla is a spiritual one. We, in a physical form, we use the Palla as the bride and the groom, but actually we're tying the Palla to the thing. And you're right.
If you think about it, when we see the bride and groom going around doing the fere, right? In my personal understanding and how I see it, is we see the physical part, but we don't see the spiritual bit. What we don't see is Guru is leading the couple himself. And the palla might be held by the man and the woman, but actually spiritually the man has got hold of Guru's palla. So at the front, ultimately, Guru is leading, not the man there.
So it's very good. I mean, that papalle ala shabd, it's actually telling you to jehde rishtedar, everything. It's telling you to actually, again, second time, it's telling you to break away from all your past, from all your rishtes, from all what you know.
Yeah.
And now from this
Start
point
from a
on,
neutral
this
point here.
from the present point of
Neutralising it.
view,
Yeah.
this is what you take on board, and
That's
this is
right.
what your life is going
and that's
to
where
be.
the Lama then explain it step by step,
Yeah.
how you progress. And then from the ultimate progression is to get to, let's say, mukti, if you like, of economic merging with Paramatma. But that's the Choti Lam, and there's a lot more in between.
And for the avoidance of doubt, Guru Sahib tells us in Chopai Sahib, Ram, Rahim, Puran, Quran, Aneka kahe, mat ek na manyo.
Ji.
Then he further emphasizes
You see, but that is a beautiful point also, in the reason that ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਸੰਸਕਾਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਫੋਲੋ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰਲੀ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਜਨਮ ਸੰਸਕਾਰ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਫਿਰ ਆਨੰਦ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਸੰਸਕਾਰ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਹੁਣ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਸੰਸਕਾਰ ਦੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ 5 ਬਾਣੀਆਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਨੀਆਂ ਪੈਣੀਆਂ ਉਸ 5 ਬਾਣੀਆਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਬਾਣੀ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਚੌਪਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਇਹ ਚੌਪਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸ ਰਹੇ ਆ
मैंने गणेश प्रथम मनाओ किस्म
किस्म कबू ना के आऊं
ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਰਹਿਰਾਸ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਦਾ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਨਾ ਗਣੇਸ਼ ਪ੍ਰਥਮ ਬਣਾਇਓ ਪਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਕੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਬਟਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਉਹ ਦੂਜਾ ਮਾਈਆਂ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ
ਮਾਈਆਂ ਦੀ
ਉਹ ਗਣੇਸ਼ ਦੀ ਪੂਜਾ
ਉਹ ਗਣੇਸ਼ ਦੀ
ਸੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਪ੍ਰਥਮ ਤੇ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਡੋਨਟ ਗੋ ਟੂ ਗਣੇਸ਼ ਫਰਸਟ
Actually, I remember a Shabad, jada Khalsa mera roop hai, khas Khalse hu main karu niwaaz. And it's a long Shabad. But obviously, end line te, Maharaj kende, jab e kare, bipran ki reet, main na karu, inki prateet. Now, je ਆਪਾਂ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਉੱਠ ਕੇ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਹਵਨ ਤੇ ਬਹਿ ਜਾਣਾ ਜਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਬੇਦੀ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਟ ਕਰਨਾ ਉਹ ਵਿਪਰੀਤ ਕੀ ਰੀਤ ਹੋ ਗਈ so you know ਥਾਂ ਤੇ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਥਰੂ ਆਰ ਬਾਣੀ ਇਸ ਟੈਲਿੰਗ ਅਸ ਕਿ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਫੁੱਲ ਪ੍ਰੈਕਟਿਸ ਕਰੋ ਆਪਣੀ ਹੈਨਾ ਪਰ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਆਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮਰਜ਼ ਜਾਂ ਤੇ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਆ ਲਾਉਣਾ ਜਾਂ ਆਨੰਦ ਕਾਰਜ ਕਰਾਉਣਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਗਿਆਨ ਆ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਧੁਰੋਂ ਆਇਆ ਗਿਆਨ ਆ and remember Sikhs ਇਹ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਬਾਣੀ ਸਤ ਕਰ ਜਾਣੋ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖੋ ਹਰ ਕਰਤਾ ਆਪ ਮੋਹ ਕਢਾਏ ਹੈਨਾ and that bani is emanated from the Almighty. ਇਹ ਧੁਰੋਂ ਆਈ ਆ ਇਹ ਧੁਰੋਂ ਵਾਲਾ ਗਿਆਨ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੇ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਤੋਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟ ਲਾਈਫ ਇਦਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਗੁਜ਼ਾਰਨਾ ਅੱਜ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆ ਗੁਜ਼ਾਰਨਾ ਹੁਣ it also gives us an example ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਟਾਰਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਕੀਤਾ ਲੋੜੀਏ ਕੰਮ ਸੋ ਹਰ ਪੇ ਆਖੀਏ ਹੈਨਾ ਕਾਰਜ ਦੇ ਸਵਾਰ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਸਤ ਸਾਖੀ ਕਿ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਨਾ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨਿੱਕਾ ਮੋਟਾ ਮਾੜਾ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨਾ ਉਹ ਕਪਲ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰੋ ਕਿਹਦੇ ਮੋਰੇ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਦੇ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਦੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ ਇਟਸ ਨਾਟ ਟੈਲਿੰਗ ਯੂ ਟੂ ਗੋ ਐਨੀਵੇਅਰ ਐਲਸ so the whole day there's messages in the whole day and if somebody is a reader of Chaupai Sahib then they will know that you know what our interfaith the marriage is really a ਕਿਸਮ ਦਾ joke because Maharaj ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸ ਰਿਹਾ
it's void
exactly yeah
hana to fir kende kithe likha bani that is a beautiful shabd that is making it very clear
and this is the thing is because of the confusion that exists and the confusion that's occurred and we you know the gurdwaras or the education system hasn't done it any justice so we've not had like we're just talking here today and hopefully the viewers will pick up on this and understand or if they didn't fully understand the shabads they might want to go well what was he saying and they want to know more and when if we sit down on I've shared with you guys before but when I sit down on a personal basis within a family or with a restidari or something and I always my personal take is try and bring around to some sort of gurmat talk right and sare karaj dukh hega koi na koi problem hegi and people always want to they'll if we don't start somebody does so then you pick it up and you start talking about something and what our feedback I normally get is that hey Badnam Singh Bhai Sahib whatever in that 10 minutes or 5 minutes that you just told us I've learnt more than I have in a lifetime of going to the Gurdwara that is very and why can't our Gurdwara institutions
okay so ਜਿਹੜਾ ਧੁਰੋਂ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਸੰਜੋਗ ਆ yes we believe ਕਿ yes ਸੰਜੋਗ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋਣ ਨੂੰ ਬੀਬੀ ਦਾ ਬੰਦੇ ਦਾ maybe from different dharms, maybe
Yeah.
within the dharm, ਇਹ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸੰਜੋਗ ਆ, okay? But we are not breaking, ਅਸੀਂ ਮੱਥਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਾ ਰਹੇ ਪਰਮਾਤਮਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੰਜੋਗ ਹੈ ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ get together ਆ, there are ways to get together. If somebody is stopping you from one end, you can go to a registry office, get yourself, registered there as a married couple, and nobody's stopping your sanjogs. Nobody's trying to stop your karms, or nobody's trying. But ਤੁਸੀਂ in effect ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਡਿਸਪਲਿਨ ਨੂੰ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਡਿਸਪਲਿਨ ਸ਼ਹੀਦੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਕੇ ਕਾਇਮ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਸੀ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਖੂਨ ਡੋਲ ਕੇ ਉਸ ਡਿਸਪਲਿਨ ਨੂੰ, ਉਸ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਨੂੰ ਕਾਇਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ, ਉਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਮੱਤ ਠੋਸਣੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ. We want to put our ਮੱਤ. ਤੇ you know what, ਗੁਰੂ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਨ ਮੱਤ ਦੀ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਨਹੀਂ. ਵੈਦਰ ਵੀ ਆ, ਅਸੀਂ ਦਾਨੀ ਆ, ਵੈਦਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਨੂੰ 1 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਪਾਉਂਡ ਦਿੰਨੇ ਆ, 50,000 ਦਿੰਨੇ ਆ. ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਸਾਖੀ ਚੇਤਾ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਆ. ਇੱਕ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਰਾਤ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਭਾਈ ਨੇ ਡੋਰ ਕੀਤੀ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਦੀ, ਤੇ ਉਹ ਸੰਤ ਭਾਈ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੀ, ਉਹ ਜਦੋਂ ਡੋਰ ਖੋਲਣ ਲੱਗਾ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਰਾਤ ਦਾ ਵੇਲਾ, ਇਟਸ ਨਾਈਟ ਟਾਈਮ, ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਸਿਕਿਉਰਿਟੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ. ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਕੌਣ ਆ? ਤੇ ਉਹ ਬਾਹਰੋਂ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਆਈ, ਮੈਂ ਆ. ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਕੌਣ ਆ? ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਦਾ, ਮੈਂ ਆ. ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਕੌਣ ਆ? ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਫਲਾਨਾ ਸੋ ਆ. ਉਹਨੇ ਡੋਰ ਖੋਲ੍ਹਦੀ. ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਤੂੰ ਪਹਿਲੋਂ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤਾ? ਪਹਿਲੋਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਸੀ ਤੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਕਰੀ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸੀ, ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਦੀ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਗੀ ਕੋਈ. So that's why we can't open the door, ਹਨਾ? So what I'm saying is that ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਮੱਤ, ਆਪਣੀ ਮੈਂਟੈਲਿਟੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ, ਜਿੰਨਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਗਿਆਨ ਹੈ, we want to put it, and we want to force our
come back to this
soch onto other people. Are they not the extremes? Are they not the Taliban or the Taliban that they're calling young people?
Before we go on to that, right, so there's another thing that you need to think about when we're talking about gurums as well. Now, when you talk about gurums and meeting people and coming across people, there's two types of relationship, right? One is that so-called, where we say soulmate, or that connection of the souls, spiritual connection. Then there is the lustful relationship. Sometimes that it gets mistaken. Then that lust, because when you're full of lust, broad law, mohangar, or any one of those 5 enemies that, vices that come take prevalence over you, will cloud your judgment.
It will cloud your judgment.
And 100%. Then you start thinking automatically, you feel that there's something there, but only because you're sensing for that moment, in that time, whatever act you're performing at that time, you feel a connection because you're in that moment. And then you get mistaken, and you go on to do the Anand Karaj, or your whatever marriage it is, right? And that's then is a lustful marriage is one where it's going to break down very quickly afterwards. And that's where, we've got to be careful in terms of these, when it comes to interfaith marriages as well, because what might seem like love may be based on lust. And then we start going down a totally wrong avenue, and we stay.
Our Etname, by Gurdas Ji, very, very clearly tells us Sara Jivani, right? And this applies for both men and for women, right? By Gurdas Ji says, "Hon tis kol kamaya, tan par nari de ner na java," right? In by Nandlal Singh Ji, in Etname, says, "Par beti ko beti jana hai, par istri ko maat bakhane hai." अपनी स्त्री सो रत meaning प्रेम हुई, फिर रहतवान गुरु का सिख सोई. Right? So we have our love for the person that we married, right? We're not permitted, right? As a Guru da Sikh, Maharaj gave us his swarup. We have a massive responsibility, right? We're not permitted to enter those relationships without the Anand Karaj. And to enter the Anand Karaj, we have to take Amrit. So if someone does go down that path and then says, okay, but this is really what I want to commit to, and if the other party also agrees, and they take Amrit, then you know what? They've entered the Guru Pantha. Beautiful.
Gee.
Well, if they're not practicing, if they're not Amritdhari, and they've got free will, right? Free will comes into this as well, and then they go off and make these connections, right? In opposition to what Maharaj and our gurus and bhagats and kavis have said, right? So they go off and do that, right? Now, this thing is you only get the gyan, right? So this connection, which Baisab has just said, is talking about the before marriage, a man should look upon other females as sisters, mothers, or daughters, and the opposite for a woman as well, right? Applies. So what we're saying is that we need to have that view, right? But we don't have that view. If we're not, until we take the Amrit and become Amritdhari and become spiritual and inclined, we're not going to understand what that means, and we're just going to carry on looking at other women, other opportunities, let's say, as kosher, as allowed, right? Yeah, and we're allowed to, because we see the Western influence, we see other influences doing it, right? So this is where, if we go back to Pratan Meyada, the Kudamai ceremony comes in. Now the Kudamai, and before searching for a life soul partner, right, life partner, was down to learned people. Okay, if we go back to the Hindu Dharma, it used to be the Pandits who used to go out and do that, but they got corrupt and they started looking at it from a financial perspective, and they sort of started looking at the wrong things, right? And then that's when our Maryada kicks in and it says, okay, well, there's a formal way of introducing a couple. And then following that is a Kudamai, and following that is then the Lava, the Anand Karaj, right? And when people say, in the modern day Gurayat Maryada, it says it's optional, Kudamai is optional. Actually, if you go back to the Guru's times, it's actually mandatory. So the Kudamai is a mandatory requirement because of that thing, and then there's a way of performing that ceremony.
Okay, thanks very much. I think we're coming to sort of an interval in this show, and we'll take a break, and then we'll be back straight into the studio and carrying on from where we left off. So I'll Fateh Bulaye, and make sure that you stay tuned to us so we can get all the other questions in place as well today. I'll Fateh Bulaye, and make sure you're back with us in the next couple of minutes.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Waheguru Ji Ka
Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Welcome back into the studio here, and ਆਪਾਂ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਜਾਣ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਸੀ ਤੁਰੋਂ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਸੰਜੋਗ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਹਾਂਜੀ ਸੰਜੋਗ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਸੰਜੋਗ ਵਿਜੋਗ ਤੋਂ ਕਾਰ ਚਲਾਵੇ ਲੇਖੇ ਆਵੇ ਭਾਗ, ਬਟ ਇਹ ਆਪਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਸੰਜੋਗਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੋੜ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹੇ, ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੱਥਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਾਏ, ਕਰਮਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਖੇਡ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹੇ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਆਤਮਾ ਨੇ ਦੋਨਾਂ ਆਤਮਾ ਨੇ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋਣਾ, there is a way ਕਿ you can actually go to a registry office or the Lord of the land, ਤੇ ਉਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਦੋ souls ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ. Nobody's actually stopping you from getting together. That's one thing that we must make clear. Nobody is stopping anybody from doing what they don't want. All we're saying is that it can be done in your own time and your space, and not in the house of ਜਿੱਥੇ discipline and gurmat. I'll give you an example. 90% ਸਾਡੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਕੌਮ ਪੀਂਦੀ ਆ, ਆਪਣੇ ਘਰਾਂ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਪੀਂਦੀ ਆ, ਪਰ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰਿਸਟ੍ਰਿਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦੇ. ਆਪਣੇ ਘਰਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਭੰਗੜੇ ਪਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ, ਪਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਰਿਸਟ੍ਰਿਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਾ ਸਕਦੇ. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰਿਸਟ੍ਰਿਕਸ਼ਨਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਵੇਟ ਲਾਈਫ ਤੇ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵੀ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨਾ, whether it's going against the religion or not, I don't advocate it, but ਲੋਕੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ. We don't knock on houses ਜਾਂ ਮੁੰਡੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਘਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾਂਦੇ. They're not an army patrolling, or the religious police, as you say, that go to people's houses and knock down. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨਾ, ਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨਾ, ਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨਾ. Always saying ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਦੀ discipline ਆ, ਗੁਰਮਤ ਦੀ ਆ, ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਦਾ, as soon as you enter the door of the ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ, the door to the guru, ਉੱਥੇ ਫਿਰ ਗੁਰਮਤ ਅੰਕੂਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਡਿਸਪਲਿਨ ਆ ਉਹ ਚੱਲਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ. ਬਾਕੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਜੀਵਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾਲ ਵਿਆਹ ਕਰਨਾ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਫਿੱਟ ਬਹਿੰਦਾ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਵਿਆਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆ ਉਹ ਰਜਿਸਟਰੀ ਆਫਿਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਰਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ. ਐਂਡ ਬਲੈਸਿੰਗ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਕੋਲੋਂ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੱਥਾ ਟੇਕ ਸਕਦੇ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਕੋਲੋਂ. The only thing is you won't be able to go through the Anand Karaj. Now we're back in the studio. I'm going to look at the quality issue, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉੱਥੇ ਵੀ question ਬਹੁਤ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ you're favoring one and not take Guru Ghar de vich everybody ਹਾਕ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਸਪੀਚ ਕਰਦੇ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬਾਂ ਨੇ equality ਦਿੱਤੀ is it not that are we now messing with that equality? Manisha, you've been very quiet, so I'm going to come to you.
Okay. In terms of the Anand Karaj.
In terms of the Anand Karaj.
Well, personally, obviously what Maharaj says is accepted by me, but a lot of the questions that get asked by females is why, one of the questions is why does the bride follow the groom? Why does the groom lead?
Okay.
But Baji did mention that it's not actually the groom leading, it's the guru leading, because the Anand Karaj ceremony is guru-centered.
Guru-centric, yeah. Okay, equality. What would you say? Are we messing about with Maharaj's Bani here, Maharaj's Hukam? Okay, we must treat everybody equally inside the Gurdwara?
So if we're talking about equality, gender equality, then yeah, that's a separate subject, and we're particularly talking about interfaith as well.
That's right. We're particularly talking about the interfaith.
So we can talk about gender equality as well.
Yeah.
But the interfaith part of it is that I think through the program so far we've been saying, and hopefully the message has come across that it's not right. If you don't believe, if your heart isn't there, if you don't understand what it's all about, if you don't belong to that faith, right, it just becomes a hollow ritual practice, whatever it is.
And the one thing is, 538, 39 years ago, Guru Nanak, he didn't accept ritualistic worship. He condemned it.
That's right.
He condemned it. He condemned it wherever he went.
Guru Sahib, at the time of his Anand Karaj, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, they built a wall and they're planning to push that wall onto Maharaj, right?
Yeah, Kand Sahib Gurdwara.
Kand Sahib Gurdwara, that's where Kand Khadi hai, right?
Yeah.
They say force Maharaj to say take a lama on the bed, Maharaj ne inkar kita. Then they said, chalo agdi de te fede kar do. Maharaj ne inkar kita.
Yeah.
And they put forward and gave us the Shabd Guru, Mool Mantar likhya siga. The char lama, char prakarma kitiyan siga, right? This is the sacrifice of Guru Sahib gave for us.
That's a very, very good, potent point. कि जे ਆਪਾਂ historically ਆਪਾਂ ਜਾਣੀਏ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਡਾ founder ਆ ਜਿੱਥੋਂ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਝ offspring ਸਾਡੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਧੰਨ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੇਵ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਵਿਆਹ ਹੋਇਆ ਬਟਾਲੇ ਆ ਮੇਰਾ ਖਿਆਲ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਬਟਾਲੇ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਬੇਦੀਆਂ ਦਾ ਪਾਠ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨਾ ਹਵਨ ਦੇ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨਾ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਮੈਂ ਅਕਾਲ ਪੁਰਖ ਦੇ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਕਰਨਾ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਅਕਾਲ ਪੁਰਖ ਦੇ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮੂਲ ਮੰਤਰ ਰਚ ਕੇ ਤੇ ਮੂਲ ਮੰਤਰ ਦੇ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਵੀ ਬਲੀਵ ਬਾਣੀ ਵਾਹੋ ਵਾਹੋ ਬਾਣੀ ਨਿਰੰਕਾਰ ਹੈ
and then
ਬਾਣੀ is ਨਿਰੰਕਾਰ for us okay ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਬਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਫਿਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੁਣ ਸਿੱਖ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਹਵਨ ਕਰਾ ਲੂ ਜਾਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਬੇਦੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਹਿ ਜੂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ the Guru Granth Sahib ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤੁਰਕੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਆ came many years later. Our founder Guru Nanak actually rejected this mode of getting married on his own marriage. So why would he,
And then the other question comes up, on this is that when people say, well, Guru Nanak was a Muslim. He didn't get married in the Muslim way either.
He didn't get married in the Muslim way.
But that is not even a... That's
but I'm just saying that, that's another angle. But
they love him so much that they call him whatever they want to call him because pyar karke they say oh sada ya.
But actually ਗੱਲ ਇਹ ਆ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਦੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ off the topic ਆ this is just off the topic ਕਿ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ ਆ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਹ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਆ ਬੁੱਧ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਹ 7ਵਾਂ 8ਵਾਂ ਰੀਇਨਕਾਰਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਆਫ ਬੁੱਧਾ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਇੱਕੋ ਇੱਕ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਤੇ ਪੀਰ ਪੈਗੰਬਰ ਆਇਆ ਇੱਕੋ ਅਵਤਾਰ ਇੱਕ ਗੁਰੂ ਆਇਆ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਸਾਰੇ ਧਰਮ ਆਪਣੇ ਨੂੰ ਖਿੱਚਦੇ ਆ ਇਹਦਾ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਇੱਕੋ ਹੀ ਇੱਕ ਸੱਚ ਸੀ, ਅਟਲ ਸੱਚ ਸੀ. That's why everybody wants a piece of that
It was
truth.
the
And
universal.
Universal
that's
truth.
the answer to your equality,
Yeah,
right? Because when we talk equality,
yeah,
if there's an undercarriage going on,
yeah.
equality means everyone is welcome to come and participate in terms of being the Sangat.
Yeah.
You're going to be fed.
Yeah.
You're allowed to sit down in the
You're going
Sangat.
to be respected.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? Man or woman, doesn't matter, child or buzurg,
Yeah.
right? And therefore there's absolute equality in our establishments, in our riti, in our maryada.
Here's another question. They say dharma should evolve into the modern times so modern people can have a concept of the dharma. है ना? And with time, with involve, ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ evolve ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ. What do you say to that?
We don't have the problem of having to evolve to the current environment, because the way in which our relationship to Guru Sahib is a spiritual relationship, and we're told to actually detach ourselves from our worldly influences. The world is going to change, of course.
Yeah, because time,
ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਹੈਗਾ
a concept, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅੱਜ, meant, it's gone, it's finished, it's past, it's history.
and ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅਕਾਲ ਪੁਰਖ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਸਮਰੱਥ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ. But from a Sinhalese perspective, if in terms of evolving, in terms of where you grow up and surrounding and staying in Sikhi, I mean, do you think, Manish, you could perhaps I don't know, say something in terms of whether there is a reason to evolve, or you think
Is
from
there a
Sinhalese-
need to evolve?
Yeah.
Or do we need to evolve?
No, not from our perspective. I don't.
It depends on your definition of evolving. I mean, I see it as developing yourself, which is like something that happens naturally. But the thing is, like with Gurbani, it's because it's sat, it kind of fits to your era.
Right, okay.
So Gurbani was written 500 odd years ago, and it applied and made sense to the people living in those times. And if
Yeah.
you read it now,
It'll,
the times have changed, but the message is still constant.
it descends time.
And
Yeah,
that's
and
it. There's this thing, this
and it
concept
still
of,
helps you in the same way that it helped our ancestors.
yeah. So the concept of Aad Sach Jugad Sach Hai
Yeah.
Bizarre
Nanak
Nanak
Hosi Bi
is
Sach.
there, and that's what it's all about. It's eternal, and it's
And you can't mess with that truth, because you can't sort of water down that truth. That truth
ਹਾਂਜੀ.
is that truth. And ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਥਾਂ ਥਾਂ ਤੇ ਇਹੀ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਬਾਣੀ ਸਤ ਸਤ ਕਰ
ਹਾਂਜੀ.
ਜਾਣੋ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖੋ
And
But the thing is,
ਅਰਥਾਤਾ ਆਪ
It's not
ਮੋਹ
Sikhi
ਕਢਾਏ.
that changes. Sikhi changes us,
Yeah.
because Gurbani Guru Maharaj is pure, and we're not at that stage. They don't need to change.
Actually,
We're the
ਮੈਨੂੰ ਨਾ
ones who need to
ਇਹ
change.
ਆਨੰਦ ਕਾਰਜ ਦੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਗੀ, ਪਰ ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਪੰਡਿਤ ਗੁਰੂ ਕਲਗੀਧਰ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਕ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਆਨਸਰਸ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਕੇਸਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਆ ਹੈ। ਉਹ ਪੰਡਿਤ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਵੇਦਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਡੇ ਪੁਰਾਣੇ ਪ੍ਰਾਰਥਨ ਸਾਰੇ ਕੇਸ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਸੀ, ਆਪਾਂ ਵੀ ਰੱਖਦੇ। ਦਿਸ ਅ ਡਾਇਲੌਗ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਸੇਨ ਹਾਂ ਪਰ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਛੇਕੜੋ ਨਾ ਕਾਫੀ ਉਹ ਲੰਬੀ ਡਾਇਲੌਗ ਆ, ਪਰ ਬਿਕੋਜ਼ ਆਪਣੇ ਉਹ ਸਮਾਂ ਵੀ ਟੋਕਨ ਆਨੰਦ ਕਾਰਜ ਨੋ ਕੇਸ, ਬਟ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਪੰਡਿਤ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਪਰ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਹੁਣ ਸਮਾਂ ਬਦਲ ਗਿਆ, ਹੁਣ ਕੇਸ ਰੱਖਣ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਨਹੀਂ, ਹੈਨਾ? ਤੇ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਪੰਡਿਤ ਜੀ ਸਮਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਦਲਿਆ, ਬਦਲਿਆ ਇਨਸਾਨ ਬਦਲ ਸਕਦਾ, ਸਮਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਦਲਦਾ। ਉਹੋ ਹੀ ਸੂਰਜ ਸਵੇਰ ਨੂੰ ਚੜ੍ਹਦਾ, ਉਹੋ ਹੀ ਸੀਜ਼ਨਾਂ ਆਉਂਦੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਨਾਲ ਚੱਲੀ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਆ with a I forgot the word, but ਉਸੇ ਰਿਦਮ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹੋ ਹੀ 4 ਸੀਜ਼ਨਾਂ ਆਉਂਦੀਆਂ, ਉਹੋ ਹੀ ਸੂਰਜ ਚੜ੍ਹਦਾ ਡੁੱਬਦਾ। ਪਰ ਪੰਡਿਤ ਤੇਰੀ ਮਨ ਦੀ ਸੋਚ ਬਦਲ ਗਈ ਆ, ਉਹ ਸੱਚ ਆ, ਪਰ because that such is not now ਤੇਰੀ ਸੋਚ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਮਿਲਦਾ, you think that's wrong, but really it's your ਸੋਚ is that is actually wrong. We don't need to evolve anything, because ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸੋਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਦੂਰ ਚਲ ਗਈ ਆ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਡਿਸਪਲਿਨ ਤੋਂ, you're saying we need to evolve, but the asal sach is there.
Yeah. So I was come back
Yeah.
to the point where we were talking about Gurbani and evolving. So Gurbani is true and it's constant,
Yeah.
continuous. It's always there. That's what's written. It's written. That's it, right? But what we have to do is we have to take that and put it into the context of our lives. It's contextual.
And
to
where
what the
you are
situation
at the present time.
And when we talk about the hukmnamas, right? You might listen to the same hukmnama I did, but depending on your frame of mind, right, it will mean something totally
And
different
my
to
stage
you.
of where my consciousness is
Exactly.
at the moment. Yeah.
But it will still be helping you, right? And that's what we got to do is remember that Gurbani is there. We may need to change our thought patterns and how we understand things in life, put things into perspective, but we're only going to put those in perspective if we understand Gurbani. And that's where Maharaj is a support. Guru is a support for us, for our spiritual and mental and physiological,
Guru Sahib.
social, psychological evolution. है ना?
Turki Bani ai, tin sagli.
Sagli
Chint Matai.
Matai.
Maharaj Noe Pacha says to us, Naam rahyo, sadhu rahyo Guru Gobind, kaho Nanak eh jagd mein kin japyo Gur Mant. So Bani is always Niranकार, always timeless. That's going to stay on this earth, not us.
Yeah.
So
it's a timeless thing. Actually, we don't have to change any of the disciplines, even look at them. We just have to discipline our own selves in thinking the Guru-centric way. So, ਅਸੀਂ ਵਿਗੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ, ਅਸੀਂ ਦੂਰ ਚਲੇ ਗਏ ਆ, ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਅਟਲ ਸੱਚ ਹੀ ਆ। ਤੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ 230 ਸਾਲ ਲੱਗੇ from Guru Nanak to Guru Gobind Singh Ji in 10 form to make the complete human being and what maryada it should live in, ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਹ discrepancy ਰਹਿ ਗਈ, ਆਹ ਰਹਿ ਗਈ, ਆਹ ਰਹਿ ਗਈ। ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਜਿਹਨੇ ਰਿਜੈਕਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਬੇਦੀਆਂ ਦਾ, ਜਿਹਨੇ ਰਿਜੈਕਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਹਵਨ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪ ਅਕਾਲ ਪੁਰਖ ਦੇ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਇੱਕ ਓਂਕਾਰ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਵੀ ਸੱਚ ਤਾਈਂ ਆਪ ਉਸ ਦੀ ਪਰਿਕਰਮਾ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ, ਉਹ ਆਪ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਭੱਟ ਲਿਖਦੇ ਆਪ ਨਾਰਾਇਣ ਕਲਾਕਾਰ ਜਗ ਮੈਂ ਪਰਵਰਿਓ। ਉਸ ਪਰਮਾਤਮਾ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਆਪ ਰਿਜੈਕਟ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਡਿਸਪਲਿਨ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਆ। ਉਸ ਡਿਸਪਲਿਨ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਮਤ ਅਨੁਸਾਰ ਉਸ ਡਿਸਪਲਿਨ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਰੱਦ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਅਗੇਨ ਮੈਂ ਇਹੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਨੁਕਸਾਨ ਔਰੰਗਜ਼ੇਬ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਿਆ, ਕਿ ਬਾਹਰਲਾ ਦੁਸ਼ਮਣ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਝੱਟ ਦੱਸ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਕਿ ਫੌਜਾਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ, ਆਪਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਡਿਫੈਂਡ ਕਰਨਾ। ਪਰ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅੰਦਰ ਅੰਦਰੂਨੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ, ਇਹ ਦੱਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹੇ। And this cancer is actually eating away within ourselves and it's very dangerous. And this ਗਿਆਨ, ਇਹ I think all ਪ੍ਰਚਾਰਕਸ ਜੇ ਆਪਣੇ 300 ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ at least twice a month ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸੰਸਕਾਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਆ।
ਗੁਰੂ ਪਿਆਰਿਓ, when we see pictures ਜਿਹੜੇ ਚੜਖਣੀ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਚ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ, ਆਰਿਆ ਤੇ ਚੜਾਈ ਗਏ, ਚੜਖੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਚੜੇ, that picture ਸੁਬੇਗ ਸਿੰਘ ਸਾਬਾਰ ਸਿੰਘ, before they took shahidi, this young boy was offered Bajit Da's daughter. ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਤੂੰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨਿਕਾਹ ਕਰ ਲਾ ਤੇ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਮਾਫ, right? Under those circumstances they didn't take a shahidi that a normal person can understand. They took a shahidi where they were tied onto a wheel with spikes on it, and those spikes together, both father and son, were dragged through, turned around and churned through spikes, right? But they didn't give up their faith and said that was the easy option out. And they said, "Nahi, main
get married, kabul kar lo dharm nu."
Right, kabul kar lo, right? Now if we understand where our Sikhi has, what our forefathers did for us to keep our Sikhi kaim, to keep our maryada kaim, then for anyone to come along and question the maryada, ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਸੋਚ ਕੇ ਸਮਝ ਕੇ।
ਮੈਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਾਰੀ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਦੇ ਐਂਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਤੇ ਇਹ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹ ਪੰਥ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਸ਼ ਤੇ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ, and it's attributed to Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj Ji. Maharaj ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪੰਥ ਵਸੇ ਮੈਂ ਉਜੜਾ ਮਨ ਚਾਉ ਕਨੇਰਾ, ਕਿ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪੰਥ ਸਜਾਇਆ, ਇਹ ਸਿੱਖ ਪੰਥ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਪੰਥ ਸਜਾਇਆ, ਇਹ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀਆਂ ਕਲਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਵੇ, ਮੈਂ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਉਜੜ ਜਾਵਾਂ, ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੋਰ ਮਨ ਨੂੰ ਚਾਉ ਨਹੀਂਗਾ। ਕਿੱਡੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਕੁਰਬਾਨੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਪੰਥ ਨੂੰ ਕਾਇਮ ਰੱਖਣ ਨੂੰ, ਤੇ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਮਗਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬਾਹਰਲਾ ਨੀਗਾ ਮੈਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਾਰੀ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਦੇਖੇ ਆ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਾਰੀ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਸੁਣੀਆਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਕੋਈ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਸੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੀ ਇੰਟਰਫੇਥ ਮੈਰਿਜ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਸੀ ਹਰ ਧਰਮ ਦੇ ਡਿਸਪਲਿਨ ਆ ਤੇ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਡਿਸਪਲਿਨ ਆ ਇਫ ਯੂ ਵਾਂਟ ਟੂ ਗੈਟ ਮੈਰਿਡ ਇਨਟੂ ਦੈਟ ਪਾਰਟਿਕੂਲਰ ਯੂ ਗੋਟ ਟੂ ਫੋਲੋ ਦ ਡਿਸਪਲਿਨ ਮੈਂ ਹੈਰਾਨ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਧਰਮ ਦਾ ਕਹਿ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਡਿਸਪਲਿਨ ਦੇ ਚ ਰਹੋ ਹਨਾ ਕਈ ਕੈਥਲਿਕ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਸੁਣਿਆ ਕਿ ਯੂ ਰਿਮੇਨ ਇਨ ਦ ਪਰ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਨੇ ਕੀਤਾ ਉਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗ ਪਏ ਇਹ ਬੱਚੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਐਕਸਟ੍ਰੀਮਿਸਟ ਆ ਇਹ ਬੱਚੇ ਕੈਲੀਬਾਨ ਆ ਇਹ ਬੱਚੇ ਟੈਲੀਬਾਨ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹ ਮਰਿਆਦਾ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰੋਟੈਕਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਗੁਰੂ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਡਿਸਰਿਸਪੈਕਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਮਰਿਆਦਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰ ਹੋਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਹੀ ਕੰਡਮ ਕਰ ਬਾਹਰਲੇ ਸ਼ਾਬਾਸ਼ੇ ਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਬਾਹਰਲੇ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਸ਼ਾਬਾਸ਼ੇ ਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਆ but your own are condemning you.
I think the trouble is here that it comes down to that thing where it's how you present that. Now, if you have a look at the way this group, this Anand, Karaj, Satkar people, the youngsters.
I mean, you got the Birmingham Sikh Youth Forum.
So those people going around who are doing the nonsense Satkar campaign, right? They started off very rough, very in your face, hard hitting. Then they come back a bit, and then they adopted the principles of Sikh a bit more, and then they started saying, okay, actually, in this current environment, in this day and age, we have to apply a bit of diplomacy and tact here. So then they started doing more peaceful demonstrations, but actually putting up placards and information, distributing information on leaflets as to what it means, the education part of it, yeah. And then it's now come to where there's a confrontation inside the Gurdwara between with the family of the bride or the groom, with these guys. They're doing a good service. They're explaining to them and talking to them, and that dialogue is what's important. Is that we don't go in and say we say okay, we will adopt what our gurus taught us. Exhaust all means first, and that's what they're now trying to do, which is very commendable to them, and to educate the people as they go along.
So on the question of equality, even that is really a fallacy. We're giving everybody equal rights to come into the Gurdwara, to sit in the ceremonies, to partake, to have langar, to do seva. But there's certain disciplines that you have got. As soon as you enter the Gurdwara, there are certain disciplines one has to adhere to. And them, we did mention in the last one, it can be Anand Karaj da ek paase, it can be said ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ equal ਨਹੀਂ ਗਏ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਛਕਾਰਾ ਹੈ because we want to take Amrit without wearing a kashara, and we want boxer shorts, and we don't want to wear a karpan, but ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ceremony ਵਿੱਚ allow ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ. This is not equal rights and stuff like that. And it applies to the same throughout the other ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਚਾਰ ਸੰਸਕਾਰਸ ਆ. We're being equal. We're actually being more equal when you get them into the brotherhood. Now, unite them into the one. We're being more equal.
You said about the Jar Sanskar.
Yeah.
Actually, there's only two in there that you've got any governance over.
That's right.
Consciousness, right?
Yep.
So when you're born, you have got no. You're in the hands of. You're at the mercy of your parents or whoever's bringing you up. When you die,
ਜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਪਿਲਾਉਣਾ ਤੇ ਜਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਚੀਖੀ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਸ਼ਰਾਬ ਦੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਮੂੰਹ ਦੇ you're in the hands of your parents.
And then when you die, that's it. Index, you're gone. So it doesn't really matter anyway, right? Yeah.
But it's what your family does afterwards.
Yeah, it's what you do afterwards, right? So in that, the two that you consciously do, right, are the Anand Sanskar and the Amrit Sanskar. They're conscious decisions that you make in your lifetime. Just like you may consciously decide to go to university after leaving school, for example, or you might go to a job, right? And you might do various things throughout your life. You do them should do them consciously, right? Now, that's the difference here, is that are we doing it fully aware? And I would say that when you take Amrit, because you're bound by the Maryada, you actually are always fully awake, because you know that tomorrow, when you die, you've got to give face to your guru, right? and you give faith to your Guru anyway in
क्या
your
मुख
daily
लेके
life.
जाऊंगा केड़ा मुंह लेके
हाँ
जाऊंगा
जी, हाँ धर्म लाए जा लेखा मांगे
लेखा
क्या
मांग
मुख लेके जाऊंगा,
केड़ा
right?
क्या मुख लेके जाएंगे
But the good thing about that for the Amritdhari is if we follow it properly is that we don't have to go to see Dharam Rai, right? Dharam Raj. We don't go see it. We bypass that and go
Yeah.
straight to the Guidebook. Yeah, and the Guidebook has the dialogue of Guruji, right? So that's the thing we want to do, and that's why we would go towards Amrit Sanjar. Now we were talking about the Anand Sanskar being the third.
That's
Sanskar.
right.
Actually, no, it's changed because it goes your Janam Sanskar, then it becomes Anand Sanskar in this day and age, then it becomes Amrit because because we can't force everybody to take Amrit, it's gone flipped over. So what they do is during the Anand Karaj ceremony, they say कि जब हो सके बच्चे बच्ची ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਪ੍ਰੇਰਣਾ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਖੰਡੇ ਵਾਟੇ ਦਾ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਛਕਿਓ and ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ ਸਾਜਿਓ. That's what they say now. So those two have flipped over because of the way this whole thing's gone, because we've been catering and we've been slackening off and allowing, because the argument comes here, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੱਚੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ lose ਕਰ ਦੇਣਾ, you're going to lose your kids if you force something down their throat. And that's the other argument that we have nowadays is if you
we're
put
going to
pressure
next episode we are going to be discussing that because that is also one question that has been posed to us over and over again, that if we're stopping people from taking Anand Karaj, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਤੋਂ ਦੂਰ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ. So that's another one that we've sort of got to answer, and that will be done in the next episode. We've only got a couple of minutes for this episode, but what I would like Sangat to read up on, and maybe it's your homework as well, कि आप दा भी तुसी ज्ञान वधाओ. Just don't take our word as the gospel, but तुसी 52 ਹੁਕਮਨਾਮੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਕਲਗੀਧਰ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਦੇ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਦੇਖੋ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ 14 number 14 Maharaj says not to get married without Anand Karaj. ਇਹ ਵੀ ਇੱਕ ਹੁਕਮ ਹੈ ਸਿੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਆਨੰਦ ਕਾਰਜ ਤੋਂ. ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਮੰਨ ਲਿਆ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਨੰਦ ਕਾਰਜ ਹੀ ਕਰਾਉਣਾ ਆ ਨਾ. And Maharaj also said read other scriptures but believe in only Akal Purukh. Believe ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਰਨੀ ਆ. ਪੜ੍ਹਨਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਪੜ੍ਹਨਾ, ਪਰ ਪੜ੍ਹਨੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਮੰਨਣਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਨੂੰ ਆ. ਪਰ ਹੁਕਮ 14 again number ਹੁਕਮ says that not to give your daughter or son in marriage to anybody outside the faith. It clear, not to give your son or daughter to anybody outside the faith. ਇਹ ਹੁਣ ਸੋਚਣ ਵਾਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਹੁਣ ਗੁਰੂ ਕਲਗੀਧਰ ਨੂੰ ਵੱਡੇ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸੋਚ ਸਾਡੀ ਸੋਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੰਨੇ ਇਵੋਲਵ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਆ, ਇੰਨੇ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਲਿਖ ਗਏ ਆ, ਇੰਨੇ ਵੈਸਟਰਨ ਕੰਟਰੀਆਂ ਸੀ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀਆਂ ਜਾ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੀ ਸੋਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਸ 10ਵੀਂ ਜੋਤ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੀ 10ਵੀਂ ਜੋਤ ਕਲਗੀਧਰ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਡੀ ਸੋਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਉੱਪਰ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਆ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਡਿਸਪਲਿਨ ਸੈੱਟ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਫੋਰਸਾਈਟ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਵੀ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ, ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਡਿਸਪਲਿਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾਇਆ. ਸੋ ਨੈਕਸਟ ਵੀਕ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਡਿਸਕਸ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ. ਤੇ ਸੋ ਆਓ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਫਤਿਹ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਕਰੀਏ ਐਂਡ ਵੀਲ ਬੀ ਵਿਦ ਯੂ ਇਨ ਦ ਨੈਕਸਟ ਵੀਕ. ਆਓ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ.